Hey, Champion Nation. My name is Kayshawn Cooper, and I am the host of the Champion Nation podcast. Before we jump into today's episode, can you please do me a favor? It would mean so much to me if you can scroll down and subscribe so you don't miss any of our episodes. Also, if you can hit that little like button, comment below. Your comments mean so much to me and our other viewers and listeners. Now let's jump into today's episode.
I was literally in consumption mode of anything and everything of how you build the belief system that you can build a successful career, that you can I'm a big believer in manifestation. Okay. And that's the time about this time was the time that I started diving into what manifestation really was. I mean, and that you could manifest your outcome, but it is also about how we speak and the words that we speak, the words that we think, and changing that story in your head so that you are living that in your actions and in your words.
Hey, Champion Nation. Oh my goodness. Myself and Melanie, we just said it's one of those days. My name is Kayshawn Cooper. I am the host of the Champion Nation podcast. I'm so excited to be with you today. Yes, I know I say that week after week after week after week, and I'm going to continue to say that week after week after week. Why? Because we have so many phenomenal champions that are joining us week after week after week. So therefore, I have no other choice to say I'm excited. And you are going to hear why I am excited today, especially those who are looking to change careers, or those who are in between careers, or those who are looking to make a pivot, or those who are on LinkedIn. We have none other than Melanie Mitchell. She is a career coach and LinkedIn strategist. Melanie, thank you so much for joining the Champion Nation.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I greatly appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. So let's jump straight into it. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do.
Yeah, so this actually starts over 20 years ago. I got my start as a recruiter. I was a recruiter for over 20 years. I worked throughout the United States. I worked with professionals from all levels, all walks of life, really. That really is what built my recruiting career. I worked in multiple industries. In 2017, I had my own change of career and career direction and went through my own career pivot. And lo and behold, out of somewhat necessity more than anything, I started building this little career coaching business on the side. Ultimately made the full-time pivot in 2018. And since then, I have been a career coach, but I focus on helping primarily mid to senior level executive candidates, really helping them understand, guiding professionals to ultimately their dream jobs. And I do that through LinkedIn strategy, as well as resume optimization, interview preparation, job search strategies, and networking.
So your email is always full.
It is, I get a lot of flack from people. Sometimes they're like, you're always working. You have to take a break. And truthfully, I'm always like, well, I'm only hired, I'm only working when I'm hired. And,
yes.
And I'm very blessed to be working a lot. And I'm consistently, my email is always filled up with, questions and clients asking for, assistance, kind of walking through, challenges that they may be facing. And so it's one of those that you have to kind of prioritize. And at the end of the day, it's, I get a lot of fulfillment out of being able to see somebody really find themselves, I think, through this process, because when people usually come to me, it's because a lot of them have challenges with maybe being forced to face a job change, or being, unhappy in their current careers and not and wondering if they can do it. A lot of my clients typically on average are anywhere at a company for 5+ years. I have some clients presently that have been there for 20 years.
Wow.
Haven't put their foot in the pool of the job search. And of course, when you're doing it in today's market is a roller coaster of one. I've been as a recruiter, I started my career at the best of economies. I don't think we'll ever get back to that. Good and bad for the reasons back then 20 years ago. But I've also been through 2 recessions. So I've seen, and of course, as a coach, I went through the pandemic. So I've seen all sides of different markets, and this is just a different market in unto itself. So yeah, a lot of challenges that people are facing, and it's not one of those types of jobs that I can sit there and say, oh, I can get back to you next week because, they may have an interview tomorrow or need to deal with a
Hmm.
boss today. And
Correct.
so, it's very time sensitive.
You mentioned something earlier in the conversation where you said it was out of necessity. After 20 years of recruitment, or 20 years in recruitment, excuse me, what inspired the pivot to career coaching, and how has your recruitment background positioned you to excel in your new role? I really want to hear about the what inspired you to pivot.
Yeah. So truthfully, I was with the company for 8 years. The truth was I had an amazing team. I loved my team, but the company itself was not being managed very well. For a long time, I knew of the problems. I mean, I wasn't blind, but they weren't impacting my office or myself, until they did. And so, had long-term team members. My boss, just to put in perspective, I had 14 executive vice presidents in 8 years. Um, so, I was getting ready to go meet my 15th executive vice president, and I literally just said, I can't do this anymore. I can't, and it wasn't that, you know, I wanted that job because believe me, that job was, you took that job, you knew you were going to get fired. I mean, that job
Wow.
was not a long-term stability by any means. So, but I couldn't go through the dog and pony show anymore.
Hmm.
And especially the direction they were going in this direction just was complete lunacy. I mean, no offense to that person they hired, but she had no qualifications. She
Okay.
had no qualifications to be in that role. And I was just like, I'm not going to go through this again. I'm not going to try to show somebody, why I'm deserving of my position when I'm running $1 million branch. Our branch was the only branch that was successful in the 5 office region. So yeah, I just said, okay, that's it. Went to go work for quote unquote a friend was a very bad mistake. I should
Why was
never
that? Why was that?
to the point of just one realizing I'm chasing after somebody else's dream
Okay.
and that I didn't have any real dreams of my own. Like I didn't know, I didn't have a plan. Like I tell my clients all the time, do everything the opposite of what I did. Just because I was a recruiter didn't mean that I didn't make mistakes in my own career
Absolutely.
and not getting paid but sticking by a friend, feeling made to feel guilty for accepting a salary when he wasn't, so just guilt and just a lot of narcissistic behavior and things of that nature, put me in a very dark kind of emotional space in terms of my own self-esteem and my own self-worth.
Wow.
And I ultimately left several months after, but I was and I took a position, ended up not working out for a variety of reasons, things that they had promised. I could see right away they were not going to hold up on their promises.
Hmm.
And yet it was, again, blame the employee like, oh, if we get you in here, then you're not going to push back. And I pushed back and I was like, no, you promised this in for me to be hired. I could work from a different location. I'd only have to come to the one location, which was over an hour away from where I lived. I was paying for parking, and then they kept extending it. Oh, can you come for another week? Can you come for another week? And I was like, well, if you pay for my parking, oh, we don't pay for parking. Well, I was supposed to be here for 2 weeks for training, and now we're entering week 4.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so I ended up quitting that position. And ultimately, this was about the summer of 2017. I just was in a very bad situation financially because
Okay.
of the first decision, and the money I had saved up was coming to an end. I was really kind of pushing it. Ended up getting another position, thankfully, but I did not do my due diligence. I was recruited, by a female CEO.
Okay.
Everything glittered. Everything was golden. I was like, wow, this woman empowers women. She invited me to, a lunch where I got to hear Gretchen Carlson speak.
Wow.
Just truly wined and dined. And so I always say I got, the glitter was, streaming from the skies. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I've dreamed of.
Okay.
This was all recruiting still. But I was going to build a recruiting team. I was going to be in the clinical research and pharmaceutical side of the business once again, which I'd done for 5 years, in previously, and got in there. And again, did not do my due diligence, did not ask the right questions.
Okay.
Where are we at from a financial standpoint? What are the true expectations of my performance? Which come to find out they were not in a great place financially and were thinking that I could come in and do some magic and create this like income, create income and create business within like 30 days. And the truth is a lot of recruiting and recruiting strategy, it is a 90 to 120 day based from the time you start to the time you might build up your first, contract.
Wow.
And, you can get lucky and of course things might have happened, but maybe one to not, sustainable business. And
Okay.
so ended up getting laid off. Remember it to the Thursday before Thanksgiving. And I remember clutching my purse and she was like, can I hug you? And I was just like trying to hold back tears. Never have been laid off before in my entire career. I just stood there thinking, I've just thrown away my 20-year career. I just threw my entire life away. I have like no money. I'm a single mom. I'm driving this beat up old car that's like life was not what I had pictured it to be in that
Melanie,
moment.
let me ask you a question. What was going through your mind at that moment? Being a single mom, more months than there is money. What was going through your
I
mind?
just remember being in fear. I remember it was really kind of I know this will sound strange, but it was really an out of body experience in those so many ways. Cause I have a very good visual memory. And I remember going to my car. I remember calling, my ex-husband who were like really good friends and I'm
Hmm.
just crying. I'm just like bawling and just being like, she wanted to hug me. And like, it was so awkward. I never hugged her back. I literally still clutched my purse, like while she was hugging me. Um,
Understandable.
and so at that point, honestly, when I say I started this out of necessity, I didn't start becoming a coach because I had some big vision of being an entrepreneur or owning my business. If you had ever asked anybody, I never talked about that. That was never on my horizon. That was never something I envisioned for myself. I was still very focused of like doing some sort of recruitment or corporate recruiting. I mean, even after that, I still was focused on landing a job in that space.
Mm,
I started doing resume writing on the side, honestly, because I needed the cash. There's no way to like shine that diamond. There was just, I just needed cash. And so,
good, good, good.
I just was like I was piecemealing. I had no clue what I was doing, but I knew I could write resumes. I mean, I knew that. And then what happened was I remember one of my first few clients and I had this amazing grad student. He was just the sweetest guy in the world. And he was like, could you help me write my questions for grads, my answers? Could you edit my answers for grad school? And I was like, sure, I can do that. Then he was like, can you help me prepare for and so, and that's really kind of how it started and then I started just educating myself about that time on LinkedIn because I knew that was where my clients would be. Again, I'm still looking for a full-time job. I ended up landing another job, didn't start till February. Uh, head of recruiting for a private company in DC and was managing 5 different locations and handling all of the recruiting, bringing everything, streamlining every process, really creating a whole recruitment process. Everything was great. I mean, I traveled down to Tampa. They had me travel and everything was going really well. And then slowly I started seeing the CEO not really supporting recruiting.
Okay.
And that's not an uncommon thing like that. A lot of companies see recruitment as a cost as opposed to as a benefit. And
As an
despite,
investment.
yeah, it's an investment. And yet, because at the end of the day, recruitment, quote unquote, doesn't make you money. So you don't see revenue come in despite the fact that you put a person in there that's probably going to make your company X amount of money. You
Is a
don't get
human
credit.
resource. Is a human like how could you not see that as a you see
But
it as an expense and yeah,
yeah,
that's a
because
topic for another
we're
day.
yeah, it's in a lot of companies view that way. It's why people are like, oh well, this person can do it, and next thing you know, one recruiter's recruiting for like 20 or 25 positions or something crazy. So, um, and then during all of this, because I started seeing some things on that, I was still doing my business on part time. My daughter had moved up to Connecticut with her dad to go to a different school. So I didn't have any kids in the house. So literally every lunch break, I'd get home at night. I'd work on clients. It was little by little. And I did get laid off again in July or June of 2018, but I wasn't scared that time.
Mm.
And I was like, you know what? Let me do some math. And then I really looked at the numbers and I said, wow, I've done X amount of business in this period of time when I wasn't even working on it full time. What if I took a chance and said, what if I did this business full time? Could I honestly, again, was not looking at it from um, a place of abundance. I was looking at it from a place of like survival. And I literally said, could I survive? And luckily, again, I have a very supportive ex-husband, who's one of my good friends. And he was like, let's give it the rest of the year. Let's see what you can do. Um, let's see if we can turn this into something that you could do for yourself. And so I went all in and now we are 2024, still doing it. Still, I mean, it's a roller coaster some years or some days and some months and weeks and all of that. But, still here, built this business and, have sustained it. So yeah.
When you were at the fork in the road when you got laid off for the second time, and you said you wasn't scared anymore, and you said, "Hey, you took a gamble on yourself."
Yeah.
Now, because of times, the time constraint to have this conversation, I'm sure it wasn't all peaches and cream when you took that bet on yourself. What did the other voice say? What did that other part of you say?
You know what? Honestly, there wasn't another part. That's the ironic thing. And I really credit working on my mindset, to be honest. And
Mm.
no, it wasn't peaches and cream. It still isn't. I mean, it's still like, how do you scale a business on your own? How do you do everything that is required in order to grow your business? And, how do you keep, this business afloat when you are, you're the one that's like, if you think of a restaurant, you're the one, you know, taking the reservations, seating the people at the table. You're the cooking the dinner. You're cleaning the place.
Absolutely.
You got, like
Everything.
you're running one, and so it's like, how do you do that? And um, and it's hard. I mean, I never try to create an image of being an entrepreneur of like, oh, it's been this just like, this beautiful ride. I have a lot of luxuries in life. I mean, I do set my own schedule to a lot of degrees. I mean, I do, for example, I work out with a trainer 3 days a week. And those are set appointments in my calendar, just like everything else. But it's at 9 o'clock on, a Monday, Wednesday, and a Friday, so,
Right.
um,
Absolutely.
on Fridays, I mostly do try to cut off by 3 o'clock. I try not to work past 3 o'clock on a Friday. So there are those things that I get to be able to do in the middle of the day, or, like I can set and say, you know what, today I'm not going to take any, that day I'm going to block off and not take any clients. I'm not going to take any calls. I'm just going to do work, and just be able to have a chill day. Um, and so there are, luxuries and the ability to do that, but there's also a flip side of like working until, 11 or midnight, or making sure that you meet deadlines, and again, juggling everything because you got to keep the wheels going, because it's only as good as you're at right now. So you got to think
Absolutely.
about 30, 60, 90 days from now.
Uh, you mentioned the reason that you were able to navigate the second layoff was due to your mindset. What type of training did you
Yeah.
undergo prior to your second layoff? Because I'm assuming your mindset was pretty much intact before the second layoff. So so
Yeah,
so
it
what
was
type of training did
much.
you do?
So I had hit what I considered my rock bottom, prior to having gone through everything in 2017. I mean, I really was at rock bottom. I didn't have, my confidence was out the window. It didn't, like, I mean, on paper, I was like, it was, I always kind of say it's like looking at it from two different lenses or two screens. On paper, I was like, I've got the 20 years of experience. I know what the heck I'm doing. I know that I bring value, but I couldn't convey that confidence in interviews,
Mm,
because my confidence was shot. So I was very fortunate. I had two different, female coaches during a period of time where I could not have afforded a coach. That was not on. I joke that I started my business on a shoestring budget without a shoestring. Um, I literally, I mean, my first big investment was upgrading my LinkedIn account to premium, which was
yes.
like a $60 investment. I will say the first month I did it, it paid off through the entire year. So it paid for itself. And, but that was like my big first, business investment. Um, I had like literally, I mean, there were times that I had no money, just
Mm,
no. And so I was at the bottom of the barrel. And so I was very fortunate. I had two female coaches that I just came across because I was literally in consumption mode of anything and everything of how you build the belief system
mm,
that you can build, build a successful career that you can I'm a big believer in manifestation.
okay.
And that's the time that about this time was the time that I started diving into what manifestation really was. I mean, and that you could manifest your outcome, but it is also about how we speak and the words that we speak, the words that we think, and changing that story in your head so that you are living that in your actions and in your words. Um, a lot of, and so these two females, they coached me on my, confidence. They gave me, some free coaching, which again was a luxury. I would not have been able to afford them during that period of
Wow.
time. And I just consumed anything and everything I possibly could to pull myself out of what that muck. And then I just made it a daily habit, to be very honest with you. And to this day, I try to do. finding gratitude in even the smallest things
Okay.
of like, oh, the sky is blue.
Yes.
Uh, you know, it, hey, you know what? I am grateful for the $10 in my bank account.
There you go.
you know, um, I'm grateful for the sun that came out today.
Absolutely.
Look at the beginning point, it was little things like that, and of course I'm grateful for my children. I'm grateful for my family and, friends that were supportive during this period of time, being supportive and being rocks and having a good support system that always was helpful too. But, finding the smallest things, and during that period of time, it was hard. I mean, it was hard because it's just like, I've really just screwed up my life. I felt like that. And so when we fast forward to 2018, it definitely, I continue to work on it. I continue to work on it to this day. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's easy to go down a different path. It's easy to go to the negative. It's really easy to go, well, you're failing at this. You're failing at this. You're not losing weight. You're working out, but this isn't. I can give you a list of all the things that I'm not doing.
Yeah,
and
we
I
all
think
can. I
every
can do the
single
same.
person, and
Yes.
it's the easiest list under the sun to curate. It's only when, and this is a question like I ask my clients all the time, why should somebody hire you? What makes you you? What makes you special? What makes you unique? Every single person, and I would say 90% of people have a tough time answering that question
Absolutely.
because we are not, you know, and women in particular, we're often told like we have to kind of downplay our strengths and we have to downplay our, the things that we offer. But we're also, I think just in general, it's just not an easy question for a lot of people to embrace. And so, learning to embrace that and then also surrounding yourself with the right people, I think is also very important.
Yeah, you are 100% correct. And it's so interesting how society works. If you're late to work or on Mondays and you're grouchy and you have to drink coffee, and you get to the office and you shut the door, and people say, what's going on with Melanie? People will say, no, don't worry about Melanie, it's Monday. That's what she does, right? We forgive people, or if Bob is on his way to a meeting and Bob is 10 minutes late. Oh, Bob is late again. Bob is late every Thursday. That's just what he does. And we forgive them. But when you have an individual who's good at being creative, or they are time management extraordinaires or problem solvers, when someone owns their strength as a society, we call that bragging.
Right.
Right? We call that bragging. But when you say, hey, what are you good at? Well, I'm good at taking complex situations and bringing them all the way down and making them very, very simplistic. That's what I'm great at. And when people share that, that's your strength. Don't just embrace it. Don't just embrace it. No, I don't want you to embrace it. I want you to own it. What do you think about that,
Exactly.
Melanie?
I have had a great life lesson. I have two children. My youngest is 21, and I always say this, some people will say, "Oh my gosh, you guys were amazing parents." I just say I was blessed. This child came out this way. But when she was really little, she danced at the age from 3 to 12. She sings, she acts, she's in field hockey, she's forensic chemistry major. This is a kid that can pretty much do anything she ever sets her mind to. And when people would say things like, "Oh my gosh, you're so pretty," or "You're so smart," or her response, even at the age of like 5, was always, "I know." And we always used to joke at our family, like, this child has no humility whatsoever. Like, she was not born with the ounce of humility in her. She still responds in that way now
I
at
love it.
22.
I
I
love it.
found, but in when she was little, I found like I was trying to like, oh, you've got to say thank
Yeah.
you, and like
Yeah.
you got to, like you got to be polite about it. And then I realized, I don't know when it happened, but I realized somewhere along the way I was tamping down on her ability to
Yes.
shine. And
Yes.
so I really tried to pull back on it as a parent and just like not make a comment. And so when people would say things to her like, I don't know how you know, like you're amazing. Like, I mean, and she truly is. I mean, I always say that she is an amazing human being. I really don't like, I was blessed to be given this child. And, but she taught me a whole lot about that. And I always share that story because she to this day does not she embraces her wins. She embraces her ability to be in a classroom full of, boys, often the only girl in some of these math classes and chemistry classes. There may be only one or two girls in a class at a time. And she embraces that. She embraces being the smartest girl in the world. She embraces being able to learn field hockey at the age of 13 and coming home and saying, hey, I decided to be goalie today. And I'm like, we don't even know what field hockey is.
I don't either. Is it lacrosse? I mean,
I'm
what is it?
like, you decided to be goalie. And she's like, well, nobody else wanted to be goalie. So I said I'd be goalie,
Wow.
and it's like, you've never played it, like, and that being her first team sport because she was a dancer from 3 to 12. So like she's the one that really kind of has taught me to just lean into it and to embrace it. And so it's something I actually now try to pass on to my clients. And I always share that story as a way to just say, when you find yourself holding back, because even it's hard, like somebody gives you a compliment. Oh, no, it really wasn't that big of a
Yeah,
deal.
no, stop. No,
Oh,
no.
yeah. How about we just say thank you?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really proud of what came out of that.
Absolutely.
And just
Absolutely.
set that for a minute and just own, like you said, own it.
Own it.
I think we've got to understand there's a huge difference between being conceited and arrogant
Okay.
and being and labeling, there is arrogance, of course. Arrogance is rude. Arrogance is spiteful and mean towards
Yeah.
somebody.
Yeah.
Owning your accomplishments and owning your strengths and owning what you are able to do is a matter of, I don't even want to label it as prideful, but you have the right to be that. You have the right to say, I have, these given strengths and these given talents to be able to
Absolutely.
do that.
Absolutely.
It's okay to do that, and I even say that to people, like, it is okay to make a lot of money. There's nothing
There you go.
wrong making a lot of money.
Yes.
Like because even sometimes, and I mean, again, money, I mean, there's so many mindset avenues from money to confidence to, which I'm at like a work in progress still with all of them. But yeah, that's where I've like really learned just to try to embrace that. And when somebody does give a compliment, just say, thank you. Like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is so interesting. It's there's nothing wrong with being great. It really,
no.
nothing is. I mean, it's not. And the thing is, and man, we can stay on this. I know time is drawing near, but we can stay on this forever because you brought up a good point. There's nothing wrong with making a lot of money. There's nothing wrong with making money. There's nothing wrong with being great. There's nothing wrong with being smart. There's nothing wrong with being the top 1% of your job. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think what begins to happen is we begin to think that we do not deserve it.
Yes.
Have you
You're
come
absolutely,
across that with your clients?
I think that people have put less value on what they have to offer. And I just remember, and like, I just had a client of mine, she was being interviewed. She was being considered for a position that was going to be brand new to her work experience. But it was with an older company, with one of her former companies that had reached out to her. It was unexpected. She was leaving. She had to leave her other company. And so she was starting to talk to me about how, like, the salary and her salary expectations. And the way she was kind of going down was not, and I had to stop her in that moment. And I said, back up here. I said, first they've reached out to you because they know you're a known commodity. They know that. They know that you produce for them. They know that you have that. Now you have X amount of experience on top of having been prior to this. So you, all these last 5, 6, 7 years, whatever, you've actually have more experience now than you did then.
Mm.
So now, why are you trying to sell yourself short and you're willing to take less money because you haven't held this type of position before? So
Mm.
you still bring value. In fact, you're bringing more value to the company than you did the first time they hired you. And I said, no, we're not going to negotiate for less than I was like, I'm fine. I was literally like, I'm fine I literally talk as we and things like that with my clients. I'm like,
Right.
I'm fine if we make a lateral move
Yes.
because of the situation. And I'm literally, I'm like, that I'm okay with because I know you don't, because of the situation you're leaving, things like that. So I'm like, I'm fine with a lateral salary move. I'm okay with that, but I'm not okay if you take less money.
No, not at all.
Not that. And she was like, I hadn't thought of it that way. And I was like, you're willing to sell yourself for less to try to fit as opposed to just truly being confident in selling yourself for the fact that, you know what, I did work for you. You know what I can bring to the table. You know my abilities. There's a reason they're coming to you in the first place. And you know what? Now I can add X amount of knowledge that I didn't have before.
Absolutely.
And, and I was
Absolutely.
like, so why are we talking about less pay?
That shouldn't
So,
even be up for discussion.
but
But
but again, it
right,
was that I
right,
don't
right, right,
deserve
right.
because I haven't necessarily done X, Y, and Z. So therefore I don't deserve to be at the same salary I was. And as opposed to just saying, no, I actually do deserve it. And here's why though. And
Right.
I'm going to tell you why.
Yeah, I'm going to show
And
you.
truthfully, it wasn't even a conversation. They actually came to her, I think, with $20,000 more or something like that. She didn't even have to negotiate. She was already like, and that was also the funny thing. They weren't coming to her with a lesser salary. She was already negotiating a salary less than what they
Wow.
even came to the table and
Wow.
offered.
Listen, I'll do confidence coaching as well. And we can really pause right here and spend just 50 minutes on this particular topic of mindset and deservingness. It really is a big thing. But as a LinkedIn strategist, how do you advise job seekers to leverage LinkedIn for networking and job searching?
One, don't be afraid. You got to show up on the platform.
What does that
You
mean?
got to
What does that
show up.
mean?
So two things. One, take some time. There are different ways to what I call optimizing your profile so that you can be found. Think of it in this sense. LinkedIn is turned on 24/7. Okay. It's always working for you. So if you implement the right strategic approach when it comes to your profile, you can have people coming to you instead of you chasing after people.
Hmm.
Wouldn't that, I mean, and that feels good, right? Like
Yeah.
that feels like a good thing. Now, when we do optimize our profile though, it only means it's gonna spike and people are gonna see that because we're gonna put in the right keywords and we're gonna rework all the pieces. But now we got to nurture it. We got to got to nurture the garden. So that means we got to go and we've got to engage in content. We've got to find, if there's the companies that you're interested in, you got to find, who's making, social media posts from that company. Is it the CEO? Is it the hiring managers? We got to be not afraid to connect with those hiring managers and decision makers and say, hey, and this is actually how I ended up with the job the second job back in 2018. I found this job for head of recruiting. I reached out to the job poster and I also reached out to the CFO because it said in the job description, this position reports to the CFO. all I simply said was, I have applied for this job and I'm really interested in it and I want to speak with you. It was very matter of fact, short, sweet, to the point. I mean, not a lot there was no bells and whistles. And I got an immediate response because I made the effort to go that step. I wasn't worried, oh, am I bothering them? Or, well, what if they don't respond? Well, we don't control a lot of things in life when we hit submit. I mean, so we can't worry about those things. The only thing we can worry about is what we can control. So
Mm,
we can control by showing up. Who are you connecting with on a day-to-day basis? Are you opening the door for conversations? Are you asking for networking or referral opportunities? Don't be afraid to show up. And I find more people are in the background and they're lurking in and they're seeing all this stuff, but they're not implementing it and they're not doing it. And when you turn that switch, and I speak of this as somebody that was on this platform for a very long time. I used it very differently as a recruiter, but knowing that as a career coach now, okay, how do I use this platform? I knew nothing of that. Okay. Everything I learned, I sought out as much advice. I got to, listen to some of the best people that are, on LinkedIn, which, I still give all of the props to. I still follow them because I'm constantly learning how this platform evolves. But I started to learn how and saw how job seekers were not, implementing they were using it as a job board.
mm,
And yes, that is a purpose, or it has a function, I should say.
okay.
But it has so much ability to do more. So you apply for that job, and now let's take it to the step further. Let's find the decision maker. Let's find the recruiter. Let's connect with people in the company. How are we going to work our way to getting that job?
Yes.
And that's what people, instead people are, hitting apply, and then kind of hoping for the best. And yes, that's still a part of the process, but like I said earlier, I'm just a believer, like, let's lay out all the things that we can control in this process. Because guess what? I cannot guarantee you, I didn't guarantee you as a recruiter. I never said, hey, I'm going to land you a job. I cannot guarantee that. I cannot guarantee that as a career coach. But what I can tell you is I'm going to give you the tools and the best possible resume possible to help you land that position. Some of it's got to be you and execution. And then there's a little bit of luck. There's always, we all need a little luck in life,
Absolutely.
um, but we also have to be willing to do, we have to go that extra step, especially in today's market.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Melanie. In your own opinion, we've talked for the last 40 plus minutes, and I'm not done. But in your own opinion, especially with the wealth of information you have and knowledge and expertise, what does it mean to you to be a champion?
I think for me, a champion is somebody that perseveres.
Mm,
That to me is a true champion, that just doesn't, maybe it's, a little stubborn, maybe I'm probably definitely stubborn, a little bit in my own, like, of not giving up like right away, and, kind of beating a dead horse sometimes until somebody has to say, no, Mel, you gotta let this one go. This isn't happening. But I see that in my daughter when she plays field hockey, and her mental, just her mental game. I know I'm probably going to get haters for this, but I'm a Missouri girl first and foremost. I'm in Maryland now, but I was born and raised in Missouri. So, I see, like, we just look back at the last Super Bowl, and every single thing on that, on the game would have said the Chiefs should not have won that game.
absolutely.
And I know there's people who are like, oh, the NFL set it up, but we're not going to go there, okay? Um, um, and it's funny because I actually stopped I actually joked to my sister that I should get credit for it because I stopped watching it at the end of the fourth quarter when they had like 2 minutes left. And then I checked my phone and it said we're going to overtime. So I went back in and watched it. And then when the Niners scored again, I it turned it off, and I was like, and then I saw we had won. I was like, it's because I stopped watching.
There you go. There you go.
But the thing that you see in that team is perseverance.
Yes.
They did not go into that thinking, well, there's only 20 seconds left. There's only 2 minutes left, whatever, how much ever time. They persevered through that, and they persevered through the entire, series. And that to me that is the true definition of a champion. It's not the person that, you get that rose to the top immediately and stayed on the, I mean, there's something to be said if you can stay on the mountain, but it's the one that had to climb the mountain to get there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Where could our viewers and listeners connect with you?
Well, you mentioned LinkedIn, so you can definitely connect with me there. You can find me on LinkedIn, of course. And then also you can check out my website at findsucceedachieve.com, and you can check me out there as well.
Thank you so much, Melanie. Hey, Champion Nation. I told you from the beginning that this was going to be a great conversation. Just wait, there's more. There's more champions like Melanie that's going to join us. Melanie summed it up in one word. This entire conversation of 45 minutes plus. Perseverance. That's it right there. When Melanie had no money, $0, probably went without eating. She didn't even share that part, but I'm sure it was really tough. But she persevered. And that's what champions do. Hey, Champion Nation, please don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Have a champion week. Take care.